let's take it from the top. Hey all, this is part 2 of the trailer analysis for 7.2, where I'll be going over the MSQ related side things. You may be wondering why this might be important with the patch so close at hand, but there is actually a lot of information worth going over, or worth refreshing yourself on from 7.0 and 7.1. So see this as just as much of a 7.2 primer as an analysis. And besides, any predictions I make that's wrong gives you ammo to poke a little fun at me with. With all that said, let's begin. So I debated whether it was better to go over the audio or visuals in the trailer first, and I think I'll go over them in tandem, because honestly, they're intrinsically linked. But this means that we'll be hopping a little out of order at times. The one thing I can say with some confidence is that all the voice lines are from the MSQ, and there seems to be about 6 different voices in all. And the characters that I think they could be are the character that I'm going to call Mr. Preservation, Shale, Historical Sphen, the Solution 9 PA system, Fake Sphen, and Beatrix. I'll address each of those as we go along, but for now, let's start from the start.
Since time immemorial, life has used death to facilitate adaptation in an ever-changing environment. The old and infirm are weeded out, allowing the species to thrive. Generational succession.
Our first voice line is read by someone new, and I think is probably going to be our poster character here, who I will be calling Mr. Preservation. And here's why. Preservation was a group devoted to preserving the people of Alexandria, and were, or are, the ones who came up with regulators and the endless in the first place, as well as discovering the use the key could have, along with dimensional compression. I think this guy right here is A, one of them, B, the lead scientist who created the regulators in the first place, and C, is an Endless, who is a ghost in the machine of Everkeep, or at least located somewhere where he can affect Everkeep's systems. My reasoning for A comes in part from the fact that preservation was a very important aspect of the MSQ, up until now, and we are 2 patches away from being done with Dawntrail's story, and still have not encountered any real trace of them, beyond what was told to us by Kryle's parents. His voice lines also match up with some of their ideology, and more importantly, and covering my second point, we can see him designing the ethereological system that looks to be what became the regulators. On these screens, you can see these orbs, which are souls, and these ethereological glyphs, which are in the shape of a compact disc, like a regulator. These are surrounded by electrope diagrams. I think he is an Endless, and likely himself had been sick with Levin sickness, which is an illness that comes about when people are chronically around lightning energies, and slowly takes away the use of their body or any feeling of sensation. This is addressed in the MSQ, as well as multiple side quests around Solution 9. And if I'm wrong about that, then he seems to at least be sick with something, or at least have been sick in life with something, based on his general pallor and the IV tube-looking device present on his neck. I also think there is a non-zero chance that this is one of the 9th reflection shards of one of the 4 missing Ascians, Dudelaphon, Ultima, Pastrat, and Helmerot. I'd go with Pastrat if you ask me. And I don't say that for any particular reason, other than that if I'm right about some of the later points, some of preservation and this character's obsessions and plans match some of the Ancients' motivations and plans and dispositions. And the fact that weirdly Yoshi P keeps bringing up that we should remember the names of all the Convocation members, and just because the Ascians are gone does not mean that the ramifications of their actions are. To be clear, even if this is the case, it does not mean we are going back to how things were, just dealing with the fallout of the events of the past, which is something Final Fantasy XIV typically does quite well, interweaving all its stories. Okay, but what about the voice lines?
There are beasts ahead of you. They must have gotten in and made themselves at home. And detecting something, you'll have to deal with it to continue on. Even during the war, the people labored to maintain the castle. It meant a lot to them.
Our second voice, I think, is Shale, the member of Oblivion. For one, having compared her voice, it sounds the same, and has the same flat affect. Fun side note, Shale's voice actor voices one other character. Can you guess who? What I think these lines are referring to is the underkeep. We know we're going to the base floor of Everkeep, where the castle of Alexandria still stands. Something you can see in the Alexandria dungeon. I'm guessing we're going to go down there to get something or someone, maybe the location of Mr. Preservation, if we detect signals coming from down there. On the way down, we see monsters in later shots, and in the next voice line from Shale, we hear about how even during the war, the people labored to maintain the castle, which presumably means Alexandria's castle and the war with Lindblom. The only reason to mention it would be if we were aiming to go there. Shale, also acting as our information officer with Oblivion, would be the most likely liaison for finding out about and being directed to the underkeep, now that Kefkiwa is gone. But setting aside voices, we now get our first shot of fake Sphen, or not Sphen, or Sphent? We'll go with fake Sphen for now. I'm gonna touch on this later, but this Sphen is one of the three that you'll need to remember: historical, endless, and fake.
We obtain more precise measurements, narrow the range of variables to avoid unnecessary trial and error. That is the most expeditious course of action. That will do. We have enough to proceed with an analysis.
Back to Mr. Preservation, we get lines about gathering data and checking variables. And I'm not sure if this is a line from long ago, while he was creating the regulators, or something else. I do have a strong feeling that he plans to make something like either a mobile living memory platform, a giant robotic monstrosity that could carry 5,000 souls into eternity forever, maintaining them at the cost of all their life. You know, something like an inorganic Zodiac, if you will. But it could be something simpler, and that he merely wants to create synthetic bodies for the 5,000 wielding Neo-Regulators. But then that begs the question, why become endless at all, when instead you could just preserve the soul within those bodies, like they did with Otis? More on all of that later. Real quick, outside of the MSQ stuff, we have shots of the Mammal Jaw Allied Society quest, and I'm really hoping this covers the third tribe of the Mammal Jaw, the Dopro, that we did not get as much about in Dawntrail. As someone who studied the Hubigo and Buniwa lore years before Dawntrail ever dropped, it was really gratifying to see them play off and expand upon their lore. But the Dopro have historically been little more than a footnote. Basically, all we've ever really known about them is modeled scales and beast tamers. So this is a good avenue to expand upon a lot of that, as well as some of the things that we happen to learn in the Whatchamakey quests. I'm also hoping that this might be a story about the Sharlayans working with the Mammal Jaw to help grow new types of crops, like what was promised in the MSQ. If so, there might be whole new culinary avenues. Think of all the food porn. I mean, new cuisine that we might see. Last on this is Hildy being Hildy, and I'm not even going to try to speculate where things are going to go because it's Hildebrand, but Cyclops holding Nashu and Hildy with a gun. It's a mood. Look, you know whether you like Hildebrand or not, you don't need me to tell you. And now we are into the really juicy footage. Alexandria is under attack from itself, again, and I'm going to call this the Second Battle of Alexandria, and it seems that the mechanical soldiers are attacking the people again. Whoever currently has authority over them, which is presumably not Galulja in this case, is causing them to take out civilians. But interestingly, it looks like specifically people not wearing regulators. You can also just barely see in some of these shots members of Oblivion, and some people in TrueView fighting back. You can also see Gosen from 7.1 walking around for a few frames in a rather calm manner for the events taking place. I do not think he is responsible for what is going on, at least not exactly, as he seems sincere in his feelings during 7.1. But we know some of his memories have been rewritten thanks to the Neo-Regulators, and now he may at least be complicit, willing or not, in what is taking place. To take a second to refresh on the Neo-Regulators, they are the Black Regulators, which were given out at the funeral of Sphen, and of which there are more to be handed out, 5,000 in total. All who have them will get to become endless, and everyone else is just out of luck. This is the plan according to Fake Sphen. Speaking of fake Sphens, now seems like a good time to break down the three Sphens. They are, in order, Historical Sphen, the woman hundreds of years ago who was the leader of Alexandria, but due to the lightning energies of the Ninth Reflection being so elevated for an as yet unknown reason, she developed the illness known as Levin sickness and died. The scientists of Preservation, however, extracted her soul and held onto it so that they might one day bring her back. Decades later, Otis gave himself up as a test subject for the scientists to devise a way to create the first Endless. However, Otis was a bit of a failure, as they placed soul and memories into a mechanical vessel, the individual we met out in Heritage Found. However, Preservation did manage to copy his memories and upload them, as we see an Endless of him in living memory. And that Endless must have come to be at a point long before we ever met him, as he had no recollection of any of our encounters. This is important because it means A, we know that Historical Sphen's soul is still out there, and B, that an endless can be made out of a person's copied memories without that person's soul actually having to be destroyed or fully cleansed of their memories. You may see where I'm going with this, and here are some direct quotes of what I am talking about on screen. We also know that souls can be placed in the memory banks of the mesoterminal, as that's how we literally enter it at the climax of 7.0. I would ask that you think back to the end of 7.1, and who we see and hear in living memory, as well as where she's located when she wakes up. But more on that in a second. The next Sphene is the Endless Sphene. This is the Sphene we knew during 7.0. She was an endless made of the memories of the historical Sphene by preservation, and had been ruling Everkeep for many years. When they made her, however, they also instilled a sort of prime directive to preserve her people at any and all costs, causing her to act against her own moral character and to be willing to sacrifice those who were not Alexandrian, no matter the cost, at great personal turmoil. This Sphene is no more. When she was defeated in the mesoterminal, it was the end of her with her memories and thus entirety of self being deleted. This Sphene, while likely a somewhat accurate version of the historical Sphene, at some point in her life, never really had a chance, as her kindness, juxtaposed with the prime directive instilled in her, was always going to lead to tragedy. At least there was some peace in her final moments. It's important to understand, none of what I have stated thus far is speculation. It is direct information present in the MSQ. It is important to understand that this Sphene was not the historical Sphene, just a copy of her memories with its own autonomy. The last Sphene is Fake Sphene. This is the Sphene we see in the back third of 7.1, and is, I'm going to say with 99% certainty, just a puppet for Mr. Preservation and his goals. I think quite likely literally a puppet. Remember, the Endless Sphene was only ever physically the sentry bots projecting her glamoured appearance. And this could be the exact same thing with her voice and image being puppeted from anywhere that can send an ethereal signal. Perhaps a castle at the base of Everkeep? It would also support Mr. Preservation being an Endless himself and operating in much the way that Endless Sphene and Kafkiwa did from living memory. This is not direct information from the MSQ, but an educated guess. But if I am right, it is very likely that Fake Sphene isn't anything more than a guise. The rest of the MSQ conversation here is going to hinge on the understanding of these three Sphenes, so please keep that in mind. Historical Sphene, a soul with memories that were stored somewhere, likely the mesoterminal. Endless Sphene, a copy of the historical Sphene with a prime directive to preserve her people added in, and who exists no more. Fake Sphene, possibly Mr. Preservation, or another Endless using a sentry and glamour to appear as her for some final goal.
Died? Whatever do you mean?
Now that we have that established, I think this shot is historical Sphene. I think her soul has been freed from the mesoterminal, and now that the mesoterminal has been shut off, her soul has inhabited a sentry unit or some other kind of physical form. Like how Otis's soul occupied a mechanical vessel, but with the added ability to project a glamour. From her perspective, I think she died and then woke up in living memory, and is now dealing with seeing what her people have become in the centuries in between, and what Fake Sphene is doing by taking advantage of things. If you listen to these voice lines, they are Sphene, but they are performed very differently than the Fake Sphene, and they express confusion over the possibility of someone having died. Look, I'm swinging very hard with this, but I feel that there are many lines and plot points in 7.0 and 7.1 that are heavily setting up this story beat and pointing to it. Something I did not notice nearly as much until a second playthrough of the 7.0 MSQ. This character looks like Sphene, is wearing her colors, and also has an outfit somewhat similar to Garnet's In Disguise outfit from Final Fantasy IX. It's also highly likely that if I'm right, this Sphene does not know us or Wuklamot, and that the memories of the Endless Sphene are something she would have no access to, and even if she had, they would have been deleted. For all intents and purposes, this is a new character, and a separate person to the Endless we knew. Just because they share the same face, and maybe even disposition, does not mean they're the same person. Other than her, there is this mysterious doctor man and some kind of assistant with him staring out at Everkeep. And I am truly flummoxed as to who these people are. One possibility is I'm wrong about Mr. Preservation, and this is in fact them. But beyond that, I can't think of anyone for this to be that isn't either a new character or an old one but in a different incarnation.
We ask that all recipients equip their regulators and promptly complete device registration.
Hey, Secure's back! Do you like Frontlines? Well, too bad, because it's time to play some PvP. Don't forget there's a mount for this series reward. Next up, we have a historical Sphen crying with destruction of some kind in the background of Solution 9, possibly after the attack scene earlier, and the PA system asking people to equip their regulators. Since it mentions device registration, I'm assuming this means the 5,000 Neo-regulators, and I'm wondering if only people with them will be secure from the sentry bot attacks, and if the others will be used as souls to fuel the new 5,000 true, quotation marks, Alexandrians. The fact the game goes out of its way to tell us a number tells me that the 5,000 is not meant to be anywhere near a majority of the population, and shows the degree to which whoever's scheme it is does not inherently value life, and sees the world as nothing more than the have and have-nots, the fit and the unfit, and those who ascend beyond, and those who are just the stepping stone for ascension. Sounds like Mr. Preservation from earlier.
Ultimately, what you think is immaterial, for the seeds we've sown have already quickened.
Next are the Scions, most of which are in battle stances, so I assume that this is from the Second Battle of Alexandria. And she told us as much in the last patch. Expect there to be a lot of Y'shtola, not only for the next 2 patches, but I suspect everything up to 8.0, as we deal more and more with interdimensional fusion, the key, and her attempts to return to her boyfriend in the first. And finally, we get to the dungeon. This is almost certainly our intro video as we get into the underkeep, taking an elevator down from the 9th to the basement floor of Everkeep, where the underkeep resides. To tangent quick, if we zoom out, you can see the 9th, 10th, and 11th floor here, and where you fight Zeralja at the top, with Living Memory having been Everkeep's 12th floor once upon a time. Below the large section, which is Solution 9, you can see the remaining 8 floors. Down at the base floor, at the bedrock of the lake, is Alexandria, like it was in the dungeon, where we saw Everkeep being built atop it. You can see that the water is missing from the lake bed, meaning it's either being pumped out or used somehow, and will be starting from the elevators and charging through the foundations of Everkeep, and then into the underkeep and castle, and then its throne room, with likely a boss being at each of those stages. We see at least one of them with the Valia Pura from Final Fantasy IX, which was the defense system of a different palace in that game. We also get fake Sphen's VO with her mocking us, telling us it doesn't matter what we think, because their plan is already working. It's interesting that she says we, not I here, and I think it further proves the puppet idea. We also get her alighting on the ground with historical Sphen peeking out from between her legs. I think this shot actually takes place after another shot we see later with the Warrior of Light being struck by a lightning-based attack. Coming back to consciousness after centuries, possibly in a robot body, only to find the civilization you love and rule falling to pieces around you while a mocking puppet version of you leads the way to its downfall, and you are powerless to stop it, has to be a hell of an experience. No wonder historical Sphen is crying.
I will show you the soul of a royal knight!
And so it begins. Our first shot of Trial 4 Recollection. And look, it's Beatrix. You knew it was Beatrix. I knew it was Beatrix. And if you didn't, hi, I'm Elio, and this robot is Final Fantasy XIV's version of Beatrix from Final Fantasy IX. To long story short, she was an evil general devoted to her country, Alexandria, and its queen, until she had a change of heart and joined the good guys. Everything about her design is a wonderful duplication in robotic form, with her sword, Save the Queen, and eye patch, and hair, and even her main theme, Roses of May, popping up for the mount in the live letter. And honestly, I am really looking forward to a new EX fight, and this one in particular. Also, there is no trial series this time around in Dawntrail, so this will be in the MSQ, just like how the trials were part of the MSQ in Endwalker. And this trial looks to be in Alexandria Castle, so expect it to happen relatively quickly after going through the dungeon. There should be no surprises someone like her exists as a robot with a soul in it, as we've already been shown that with Steiner, I mean Otis. The only question is, was she one of the older models, where the whole soul was placed inside, or merely the memories and being piloted by an Endless? We do have a voice line from Beatrix telling us that she will show us the soul of a royal knight, implying that she does in fact have a soul, and is not purely an Endless. The robot enemies in the dungeon also seem to have their armor designed to evoke another Final Fantasy IX character, the Alexandrian female soldiers, to be precise. Last off, we have Beatrix using some sort of ultimate attack where she stabs her sword, Save the Queen, into the ground and a bunch of rose thorns spring out. Don't forget to use your mitigation. Okay, on to the last section.
The people have glimpsed hope in transcending death, and they can ill turn away from it.
We have the voice lines of fake Sphen telling us that the Alexandrians have been given a new hope in transcending death, and they can't, or won't, turn away from it. This, over the top of the Arcadian shots, seems pretty fitting, given the feeling of need the Arcadian fighters have in order to win their bouts. It's really worth hammering home that for Alexandrians, their system has been their way of life. Their forgetting of those they love is all they know, and they are not inoculated against or used to handling loss. Most of the side quests in Heritage found in Solution 9 show the myriad ways that people still struggle with the complicated feelings around feeling like something is missing. And Galulja himself in 7.1 spends the patch asking himself, is it better to forget those who are gone, or to remember even if it's sad? These people are desperate and can't see the way forward, and a false prophet is arriving from out of the blue and telling them that they can have their paradise, so long as they just follow her and ignore the plight of others. The only way out of this is showing them that it can be better without condemning other people, and that's a hard thing to do. In short, don't make people desperate. Desperate people do dumb things and are easy to manipulate.
The evolution of our kind is at hand. Together we shall rise above death and bask in the infinite possibilities of eternal life.
And then we have Mr. Preservation in some sort of vision or memory or something operating terminals. If I'm right about them being an endless, this may be them operating as a ghost in the machine, affecting Everkeep. Or simply, it could be a memory of a time before, though it doesn't have the typical signs of an echo vision. We then see the power shut off to True View, and the rest of the Arcadian, and I expect this to only last for a quest or a cutscene. But man, would I love it if they committed and had this powered off state last for an entire patch. After that is a shot of a throne, surrounded by Electrope, and a glamour that comes to life over top of it, showing traditional Alexandrian interior design. I'm assuming that this was Queen Sphen's throne in Alexandria Castle based on the design. And what we are seeing at first is the actual appearance of it and the room, since we know the castle was augmented by Electrope. And then we are seeing a glamour turn on and showing the way that it used to look, or is supposed to look. Super importantly, you can see what looks like a terminal behind it, the kind we found in Living Memory, the ones that housed the Endless, the 4 elemental ones and the Mesoterminal. If so, this could be the hiding place of Mr. Preservation, or at some point where historical Sphen was housed. After all, it does sit behind her throne. Again, that's around 3 leaps of assumption on my part, so take everything I am saying with a lot of grains of salt. It's possible I'm even right with the underlying premise, but still wrong about what comes to pass. Often, my reasoning for the MSQ patch to patch is very sound, but at best I'm probably 70 to 80% correct, and arguably closer to 50-50. At least that's when I'm speculating, not when I'm going off direct information in the game. Between shots, we get the lines, "The evolution of our kind is at hand. Together we shall rise above death, and bask in the infinite possibilities of eternal life." Assuming these announcements are controlled by Mr. Preservation, and assuming he has the outlook that life is about the survival of the fittest and evolving, it could be that he sees Endless as the next form of progression in mankind, and ascending beyond death being the next real step. The reality is, no matter how you frame it, it is sacrificing the lives and souls of others just so he and 5,000 others can have their own paradise. Endless cannot live without constantly consuming the souls of others in an imbalanced way. It is anathema to the lessons that the stories of Final Fantasy XIV have been about, since A Realm Reborn. It's okay to question whether an Endless is living or not, and if you come away with yes, that doesn't make you the bad guy. The game is asking you to question that premise over and over. But it is an inherent evil to sacrifice others endlessly, just so you can have bliss. And that's what's going to happen if this plan succeeds. No matter how you shake it, people, souls, the ethereal sea, and the star, all of it will be used up just to let a select few live eternally. It's cruel and inhumane. And even worse, it won't stop there. For a second, let's talk about the next shot. We see Mr. Preservation hit a button, and we cut to the Warrior of Light getting hit by an ungodly amount of Levin energy. Based on an earlier shot, I'm assuming it weakens us enough that we are down and out but awake for the following cutscene. It happens in true view based on the background, and probably before any kind of attack or power going off based on the surroundings. It seems like the energy used may actually itself have come from the surrounding buildings, since they power down after we are hit. But let's go back to a second ago. What did I mean earlier when I said it wouldn't just stop at our star?
We have important business with you. We left something in your keeping. The key to interdimensional fusion. You will kindly return it to us, yes?
Well, this is what I meant. Fake Sphene with Mr. Preservation on screen in the background asks for the key back. They clearly want access to the key for interdimensional fusion, something Preservation had studied, as it would allow them a limitless source of aether to sustain their new 5,000 souls. Star after star and reflection after reflection, they will suck them clean so they can live on eternally. This shot to me also further gives off the fake Sphene is a puppet vibe. I also fear that at the point they are asking for the key this bluntly, they are taking advantage of some kind of leverage, like the lives of those we hold dear in exchange. On a final note, a reminder and a speculation. First off, this is 7.2, which means it's the Rising Action patch, as 0.1 through 0.3 are the epilogues to the respective expansions, except with the Realm Reborn and Endwalker. Try remembering where the plot was during Heavensward, Stormblood, and Shadowbringers during their 0.2 patch, or how important the 0.1 through 0.3 were to finishing their stories. Hell, Heavensward left off on a crazy cliffhanger, and the story itself does not conclude until 3.3. The 0.1 through 0.3 are effectively a sort of epilogue, or arguably third act of the story. Dawn Trail is still in the middle of telling its tale, so let the story unfold before casting full judgment. It doesn't mean don't be critical, just be thoughtful. And the last bit of idle speculation I have, if Mr. Preservation is where they use the name Kuja, it would not surprise me, based on his ideals in Final Fantasy IX and obsession with life. Another possibility is Kuja could be the Arcadian president because it's still unclear what's going on with them. One thing I do wonder is where Mr. Preservation plans to house all the Endless. And the thing I keep coming back to is the idea of a mobile living memory. An entity that could travel from star to star, absorbing living aether, while the denizens of the cyberspace it held could live in eternal bliss. A little like how Zodiark housed the aether of the ancients. And between that and an obsession with life and death, and with 0.3 always having a climactic trial, I wonder, are we going to see Final Fantasy XIV's version of Necron? Okay, I'm gonna stop there. There are a lot of things I want to say, and patch day looms, and no one ever accused me of being brief. There are still so many questions I have about the Ninth Reflection, like why did the Levin energy rise in the first place? Was the Lalafell that found Electrope in the first place actually an Ascian in disguise? What's going on with the key in the Magic of Azim? What remains of Pastra, Helmra, Altima, and Dudelaphon? How much of the Ninth Reflection remains exactly, and has the Reflection at any point begun to heal? And where is the story going in 0.4 onwards? And so much more. As always, it's an exciting time to play the game we love, and my excitement to engage with it as a text only grows, and I'm curious and thrilled to see what comes next. But what do you think? Think I'm crazy? Or see something I missed? Let me know in the comments down below. And in the meantime, happy patch. Stay safe, Archons. Thanks for watching. Primary sources are important. I do not come up with bullshit often, but when I do, I prefer doing so responsibly. Oh, that's going in outtakes.